Let's talk a little bit about, I want to bounce back to what we were discussing earlier with COVID and some of the challenges that came up. I think that there are several unintended consequences when policies are put in place. I think that like you mentioned, we've never seen this before. I've never seen it in my lifetime. You've never seen it before in your lifetime. And the government came in and said, hey, we've got to put some policies in place and some procedures with good intention to protect and save lives, right?
Yes.
But there's unintended consequences of that. And I think that what has happened is the load of paperwork that's been put on every skilled nursing facility and every employee there has now created added workload. So not only are you chasing down information and trying to solve that problem and trying to get your patient back to a point of functioning, you now have added paperwork and extra steps that you have to go through. Talk about what are the challenges or how have you dealt with that extra workload?
Good question. When you think about scheduling your day, you always want the perfect day, everything to fall in place, right? One after the other. But reality hits really quick, usually about 5 minutes after 8 o'clock when you start. That's not going to go that way. So it presents a lot of challenges. Paperwork is one of the, I hate to say the bane of our profession. And I think for everybody, we always have to have that paper trail.
Well, you never got into physical therapy to say, hey, I want to fill out a lot of paperwork, right?
No.
You got into it because you wanted to help people.
Exactly. But the paperwork's there. It's part of the job. And so you try to get creative in how to do it and to set aside time to do it. Sometimes it makes your days longer. It definitely creates challenges as far as how to communicate effectively too. I went into physical therapy not because I love to write.
Right.
And I'm the first to admit I'm not a great writer. I always love how an author can truly paint a scene when you read a book.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. To paint a scene. What am I doing with this patient? How, what are they doing? So the insurance provider can read it and say, okay, yeah, they're progressing. Or the physician, when I send a note to the physician, this is how things are going. You try to paint that picture, but, I wouldn't say that's not one of my strong suits.
I think it's pretty common, though, with physical therapists. I know you get into the business because you tend to be more of a kinesthetic, hands-on type of person. Mm-hmm. The auditory and the verbal is not something where you're leaning towards that. Yeah. You didn't become a broadcaster for a reason, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's just as you're leaning into that strength of that kinesthetic, I like the hands-on thing.
Very much,
so that becomes, as you said, the bane of your existence mm-hmm. because now you have to do more of something that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. Which I would imagine is the case with your therapist that you manage as well, right?
Oh, yes.
So how do you keep, what are some of the challenges that you're finding keeping your staff on the same page?
Making sure paperwork is done is always something that is important because if the paperwork's not done, you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
So, you try to streamline it as best you can for your staff. You try to use tools, software and things like that can make your job a little bit easier, which it does. And it's improved a lot. When I started my career, everything was a handwritten note.
Yeah.
And so, again, you go back to the deciphering handwriting. Right. But now we've progressed through electronic documentation, which has made a big difference. And it's easier sometimes to have, as you scroll through a computer screen, you get faster at the more you do it, obviously, but it helps to make the job, lightens the load a little bit instead of having to do handwritten notes and so forth. I remember working with a therapist, and come the end of the month, he'd have a stack of paperwork about this much that he was trying to catch up on every month, And
it's pretty common.
And he would pull all-nighters.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And fortunately, it's not quite that bad as it used to be, but it's still, there's times that you spend hours just trying to catch up and to keep you where you need to be on your paperwork.